The writing's on the wall here. One of the biggest banks, Wells Fargo, has just been caught red-handed. Now, apparently, they owe some of their customers around $2 billion in damage payments for what news outlets are calling a litany of wrongdoings. Tell me if this happened to you guys. Wells Fargo has been flagging innocent accounts intentionally, locking investors out of their funds, shutting down accounts, and basically destroying lives and livelihoods. So really, it makes you think, is your money safe with your bank? A lot of the people I know have been opting to just leave just enough money in their bank accounts to pay their bills. Nothing more, nothing less. Everything else, they have ready in cash or invested in the stock market or other investments. In fact, we're hearing more news about the possibility of bank runs happening. And lastly, there's CBDC, or the central bank digital currency. This is threatening to take absolute control over your finances and our cash flow. Can you imagine the government just watching every purchase and every transaction that you ever make? Or worse, it could even reach to a point where they can just tell you what you can or you can't buy with your money. Yep, that is totally possible, and we should really take a hard look at that. All of that in today's video. Definitely stay right there. Now, before I continue, if you're in need of your daily dose of the truth when it comes to Social Security, SSI, SSDI, the state of our economy, the housing market, the stock market, and everything that's going on in Washington, D.C. that affects our lives, our families, and our bank accounts, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you own a home, make sure that your home is protected. Never be caught off guard by another very expensive, unexpected home repair again. Get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description down below. Only takes like 15 seconds. All right, guys. So here's the deal. Your bank could owe you money. And I'm not just talking about Wells Fargo either. All of them could be in on this. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, your local credit cooperative, credit unions. Yeah, all of them. Because these things that Wells Fargo has been doing, I bet a lot of other banks might be doing the exact same thing to their customers without us knowing about it. So yeah, Wells Fargo could just be the first one of them to give out these damage payments to their customers. But listen up, because I'm going to tell you guys exactly how this is going to affect us, how it's going to affect our cash flow, plus how you can get what's yours. Wells Fargo has been committing what the media is calling a litany of wrongdoings over the past decade. Well, I'm not really surprised there, but finally, they've gotten their just desserts as the federal watchdog Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB, whacked this shady bank with a $3.7 billion penalty, with $2 billion due to customers. As the CFPB director said here, quote, Wells Fargo's rinse-repeat cycle of violating the law has harmed millions of American families. This is an important initial step for accountability and long-term reform for this repeated offender, end quote. Now, let me know if you guys feel the same way, that these banks and the government have the American people on the rinse-repeat cycle of harming the working class and blaming middle and lower income earners for everything that's wrong in the country, when in reality it's the super wealthy and the systems that they put in place that are at fault. Can I get an amen, guys? Now, here's what Wells Fargo customers need to know about the landmark ruling. Also, who is eligible for the compensation and how to get the money that is owed. According to the final verdict in the case, Wells Fargo was found to have illegally assessed fees and interest charges on auto and home loans, misdirected loan payments, and wrongfully repossessed customers' cars. The bank also sprung unlawful surprised overdraft fees on its customers and tacked on incorrect charges to checking and savings accounts. And this is not the first time that the CFPB has caught Wells Fargo doing this kind of foul play. In the past, they've penalized Wells Fargo for taking mortgage kickbacks, mishandling student loans, holding fake accounts, and misusing auto loans. And you should hear how the CEO spins the whole thing. They were making it look like it's them who brought it up. Just take a look at what Wells Fargo CEO Charlie Scharf said here. Quote, we and our regulators have identified a series of unacceptable practices that we have been working systemically to change and provide customer remediation where warranted, end quote. Yeah, leave it to Wells Fargo to make this stain on their reputation sound like it's something that they should be proud of. Just listen to this here. Quote, this far-reaching agreement is an important milestone in our work to transform the operating practices at Wells Fargo and to put these issues behind us. Our top priority is to continue to build a risk and control infrastructure that reflects the size and complexity of Wells Fargo and run the company in a more controlled, disciplined way. End quote. I mean, do you guys believe that these banks and their CEO mouthpieces at this point? I definitely hope not. This definitely hits home for a lot of Americans, though. It says here, 1 in 3 American households are customers of the bank or an affiliate financial advisor. In total, more than 16 million accounts at the bank were subject to illegal activity. So if you have a Wells Fargo account, take note of the damage that you may have suffered, how current payments are being distributed, and keep an eye out for further issues in the future. Or you could opt to just take all of your money out of the questionable financial institutions that are misbehaving. And of course, make sure you know what steps that you should take and the level of compensation that you may expect. In short, how much money you should get in damage payments. Now, for auto loan customers, some customers' loan payments were not applied properly to their balances. This in turn caused higher interest rate charges. It caused late fees, wrongful repossessions. Can you imagine walking outside and then your car is gone and you think someone stole your car, but no, it was like your bank repossessing your car even though you've been making your car payments on time? It's crazy. Now, in some instances where customers paid for gap coverage, the bank did not refund money owed if the loan was paid off early. Fraudulent activity impacted over 11 million accounts, and the holders of these accounts are owed $1.3 billion in total. For mortgage loan borrowers, Wells Fargo basically all but ensured foreclosures when they unfairly prevented some borrowers from making modifications to their loans so that they can catch up with their real estate payments. The bank also wrongly reported some customers as deceased. Yeah, they're saying that you're dead. And they overstated attorney fees led to denied applications and resulted in thousands of wrongful foreclosure actions. Thousands of customers were impacted by mortgage errors and are owed around $200 million in compensation. Oh, and Wells Fargo deposit accounts too. Some Wells Fargo deposit accounts were hit with extra overdraft, withdrawal, and monthly fees. There were even instances of unjustifiably frozen customer accounts that stayed frozen for weeks because Wells Fargo said that they were preventing fraudulent deposits. Over 5 million accounts were impacted by this misconduct and are owed over $500 million in compensation. Now, if you believe that you may have suffered from any of these instances of abuse or neglect, Wells Fargo is legally obligated to contact you regarding compensation. You shouldn't really even have to do anything on your part to receive what money that you're owed. In fact, some people have already started getting their payments. But let me know in the comments if you're one of them. If for whatever reason you believe that you're owed money and the bank has not yet made contact, I'll leave a phone number for Wells Fargo down below. Damage payments will vary depending upon the relevant violation. So for example, those whose cars were inappropriately repossessed, they're entitled to a minimum of $4,000 in compensation for any associated costs. And of course, watch out for those fraudsters. If you're contacted by someone who claims that they can assist you in getting your compensation and or requests an electronic transfer to do so, it's probably a scam, no question about it. Get in contact with the CFPB right away. I'll leave a phone number for those guys in the description down below. And we see some of that in the comment section right here. They pretend to be me. They even steal my picture. They use my picture and act like they're me. They ask you to contact them on WhatsApp. It's crazy. Have you guys been seeing that? I do my best to block them all, but they just keep creating new accounts and continuously attempting to scam people. So let's watch one another's backs, guys. Make sure to call those guys out in the comments if you see them. We're all one financial freedom fam here, right? Now, speaking of, I've been hearing from some of you about banks downsizing their storefront locations. Just recently, I read one comment about people using mobile banking and internet services more. I don't know about you guys, but is it just me? I just drove to my bank this morning with a question about my business accounts, and they gave me great customer service because, well, the bank was empty. I love having my banker available when I need them, and I hope that they keep the locations in my area open. But what about you guys? Do you trust banks with no physical locations? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, we're also watching out for bank runs. Those can get really scary. Just take a look at what's happening in Nigeria right now.
Queues outside petrol stations and outside banks. Residents of Lagos wait for hours to get cash or fuel, but neither are guaranteed. Ahead of the elections, Nigeria's economy is facing two major crises. The first, a cash shortage sparked by the replacement of paper notes with newly redesigned ones as the nation hopes to curb money laundering. In spite of a January 31st deadline, banks don't have enough new currency to swap for the old notes which residents are handing in. A crisis which has left people cashless and has forced businesses to close.
The ATMs are not working. Even when you walk into the bank, they will tell you they are not giving that money, that they don't have the cash, the new notes. So it seems as if this is the only bank that is dispensing money.
Now, this could happen right here if banks keep screwing people over. Simply put, a bank run is when a large number of people withdraw their money from a bank all at one time, causing the bank to run out of money and potentially shutting down. So yes, banks can run out of money. See, they have this rule called the fractional reserve banking system. This is the system where banks only hold a fraction of the deposits made by their customers and they lend out the rest. So if everybody tries to withdraw their money all at the same time, the bank simply just doesn't have enough cash on hand to give everyone their money back. The banks would then have to sell their assets at a loss just to keep up with the people's withdrawals. That means bankruptcy for them. And that's why it's always a good idea to diversify your savings and keep some cash on hand. This can also help protect you from potential risks of bank runs and other financial crises. Now, speaking of, there is the threat of CBDC, or the central bank digital currency. They're definitely getting more serious with this too. And with inflation still out of control, the Fed could definitely use this to monitor and choke out some people's cash flows. But let's talk about it here. A central bank digital currency, or CBDC, it's a digital national currency. So this means pike paper dollars. A CBDC would be a liability of the Federal Reserve. But unlike paper dollars, this takes away most of our privacy protections. I mean, just think about it for a second. We don't know who's using a $100 bill today, but a CBDC could make it very, very easy for the government to track and monitor people's financial transactions. They record everything on a centralized ledger that's controlled by the central bank. Sure, they'll say this will prevent money laundering and other illegal activities with money, but what they really don't talk about is how much they're going to infringe on people like me and you, our rights and our privacy. The key difference with the central bank digital currency, the CBDC, is that the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and the regulations that will determine the use of that expression of the central bank liability, and most importantly, the technology to enforce that. Simply put, a CBDC will give countless opportunities for the government to control any and all of your financial activity. They could just freeze or seize your assets, pretty much just stop your life at the push of a button. Governments have long recognized that freezing someone's financial resources is one of the most effective ways to lock them out of society. However, a CBDC could make the process even easier and faster for governments by enabling a direct line between citizens and the government itself. They could even take your money by imposing negative interest rates. Yeah, this is totally possible. In effect, a negative interest rate would result in people losing more money. So imagine putting $1,000 in your bank account and noticing that, every other month you're losing $1. So rather than earning interest, your money is losing value, literally. The Fed could be all like, spend it or lose it with our money, and we won't have the power to stop them with their CBDC. And worst case scenario, if a bank were to fail and people had their money in CBDC, they could lose all of their money, just like that. This is because CBDC is a liability to the central bank, not to the commercial banks. So if the central bank were to become insolvent, people would lose all of their CBDC holdings. Then of course there's programmable spending, meaning that the government could tell you what to spend your money on and stop you from spending money. For example, policymakers could try to curb drinking by limiting nightly alcohol purchases or prohibiting purchases for people with alcohol-related offenses. Would you guys want that? Basically, by programming a CBDC, money can be precisely targeted for what people can and cannot purchase, what people can and cannot do. Definitely some scary stuff out here, guys. And of course, we also have to talk about the security, or I should say the lack of it when it comes to CBDC. Consider a cyber attack on two different kinds of networks. The first one targets the Bitcoin network. Since the network is decentralized, it remains functional even if one computer is compromised by a hack. But next, compare that with an attack on the CBDC network. Now, since all transactions go through a central authority, if it's compromised by an attack, the entire network would be disabled. In short, a CBDC would fail to offer the benefits that they're trying to sell us on. It would threaten our financial privacy and our financial freedom, and all in all, undermine the banking and cryptocurrency industries. In other words, those calling for the rollout of a CBDC are naive to believe that this can actually be done without establishing a centralized surveillance system for all financial transactions. I mean, even if they don't do this with their initial design, it would certainly be something that's easy for them to do later on. Like they say, once a door to surveillance is opened, it's virtually impossible to close. I mean, this definitely makes the case for staying away from banks completely and in the first place. It's just obvious how they're no longer looking out for you, if they ever were looking out for us, right? All digital currency is about to be implemented, so I keep a daily eye on your account if I were you. But like I always say, guys, always have some cash stuffed in your mattress. Diversify your income streams with side hustles and investments. They can't get all your eggs if they're in different baskets, am I right? But let me know if you want to learn more about this. Also, for the best way to invest in gold, there's a link in the description down below. Our comment section is always wide open for you guys. And also make sure you always hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you don't miss out on future updates. But there you go, guys. Another important financial update and daily news report. Wells Fargo owing their customers over $2 billion, the threat of CBDC, and what you can do to safeguard your money and your cash flow. Really hope we hit your sweet spot today. And if not, feel free to ask more questions in the comment section down below. Appreciate you guys watching. Please be kind to one another. I'll see you on the next one.